environmental planning. So a lot of it is, from us, the uniformed environmental attorneys, is operational environmental law, meaning when we test, when we train, we have to make sure that we're in compliance with all the federal statutes that we're required to be in compliance with, so that our training missions can get done and the Navy can do what it needs to do to continue its overall mission. That was not something I had previous experience with prior to coming into the Navy. The Navy actually sent me back to get my LLM in environmental law a couple of years ago. I've been on active duty now for 12 years. What I was kind of telling him a little bit was I didn't actually anticipate, to be honest, staying as long as I have. I thought I would kind of come in and get some really awesome experience for about 3 or 4 years, and then the Navy would go to do something else. But I've actually enjoyed it so much that I made the decision to stay on active duty. And so I intend to stay now, so keep it up to 20 until I can retire. So I'll give you a little bit about, so this again, the PowerPoint is the ideas to kind of give you some ideas as to what we do. The way to look at it, you know, our legal practice in the Navy is we have kind of one of two clients. We either have a Navy client, either the Navy, like a commanding officer of a ship, like in my case, of the region commander who's in charge of a good portion of land for the Navy and all the Navy bases that fall under that. So you might be advising the Navy, or you're going to be advising an individual service member, say in the context of court-martial defense, personal representation for maybe like a medical board, because obviously physical fitness is something that's pretty key for the military. And so if you're injured, maybe the Navy decides they have to actually let you leave. You're going to have the right to counsel through some of that process, and so that's something that the JAGs will also do. And then a common first tour kind of assignment is something we call legal assistance, which is kind of like legal aid to service members. The big primary legal areas there are consumer defense, because unfortunately a lot of our service members fall victim to like every consumer scam in the book. So the JAGs are really super helpful in trying to get them out of that, bad car deals, credit card, payday loans, those kinds of things, as well as estate planning, because obviously us in the military, we tend to go into harm's way more often than the average individual, and so they get free wills and free estate planning for them and their entire family, not like their immediate family, like their spouse and things like that. So we'll do a lot of estate planning before folks deploy. So that's kind of, again, the way to look at it is you're either going to have the Navy as a client or a service member as a client. These are kind of the wide range of areas that we can practice in. Like I said, I've been in for 12 years now, which sounds really old, but and I've touched a great deal of this, quite frankly, in my 12 years. One of the great things about the JAG Corps is the diversity of practice, where you don't actually have to specialize right out of the gate, right out of graduation. You get a chance to do a lot of different things to kind of get a feel for what you as a lawyer like to do. And like I said, I've had an opportunity to do all of this. Here's our typical clients if you're representing, if you're counseling someone that's in the Navy. It's everything from individual squadrons and ships to installation commanding officers and again region commanders like what I do. The Navy's a big institution and all over the world. One of the things we like to pride ourselves on is the opportunity not just to practice law, but to actually develop leadership skills as well. You are going to be given not only a lot of responsibility right out the gate in terms of your legal practice, but you're also going to get a lot of managerial experience as well with the teams of people that are probably going to be working for you within the first few years that you are out and practicing. We do have obviously the opportunity, like this picture shows, to deploy into war zones. I did spend some time in Afghanistan, so these are actually lawyers. So this isn't just a motivational picture. I have carried a weapon to work. I've ridden in Black Hawk helicopters over Afghanistan next to really large guns. I've been on aircraft carriers and stood on the flight deck while jets landed, and I got to, all that kind of stuff is actually real stuff that you actually can do as an attorney in the JAG Corps. It's not just lip service that we kind of give you. Honestly, one of the fantastic components about JAG Corps Life is that they really do strive to maintain a solid work-life balance. They recognize that, yeah, you're going to have assignments that are going to be grueling. Maybe you're in a litigation job, and you're going to be driven by the court schedule. I spent a lot of time with the Office of Military Commissions, and so we were litigating cases in Gitmo. And so you'd be gone to Gitmo for quite a period of time. you know, working around the clock. And then when you come home and when you're back up in DC, there's an understanding that you're not under that same kind of time crunch, if you will. And so what's great is that, you know, like the job I have right now is really a good solid 9-to-5 job. I have time to go volunteer at my kids' school. I have time to, you know, obviously spend time with my family. It's really something that the Navy prides itself on, because family is a huge component of our lives, and the Navy wants to make sure that they recognize you need a balance between your work life and your private home life as well as the community that we work with. So there's about 800 active duty JAGs right now in the Navy. And believe it or not, I have had a chance to kind of come into contact with a good portion of those, because it's comparatively small compared to the other services. And so you really do develop lifelong friendships with the folks that you work with. It's a weird in the sense that it's a job, but you also have almost like a family with the folks that you work with, especially those that you go through training with and the folks that you maybe deploy with. They tend to be closer friends than you might find otherwise. So a little blurb about our benefits. If you come into the JAG Corps, you actually are serving on active duty, so you get all the benefits that would come to any active duty member. There's a base pay, and it's all statutory, so you can actually just Google military pay charts, and you will get a chart that's literally based on how long you've been in service and what your rank is. So the key component is obviously that base pay, plus you also additionally receive a non-taxable housing allowance, which is great because obviously it goes to pay for most of your rent or mortgage, but it's not actually taxable as income for you. If you go deploy to a combat zone, you actually might earn your salary completely tax-free, which is something that, again, when I was in Afghanistan, I don't think I had to pay any taxes for that time I was gone, which is kind of awesome. JAG Corps recognizes that law students may have student loans, and so they still have a $60,000 bonus program where it's actually broken up into 3 increments based on kind of your length of service. Your first one comes about 3 years, I believe, after you graduate from justice school, and it's a $30,000 bonus. A couple years later, it's a 15, and a couple years later, another 15. You do accrue additional time of service requirements, meaning if you're going to take their money, you're agreeing to a few more years on active duty, but it's a great way to help offset student loans if you have them. So that's something to kind of keep in mind as well. The worldwide travel, like I said, there's going to be a slide of kind of where we are, but we are all the way around the world. And so if that's something that you are interested in, getting out, traveling, practicing law in another country, that's something that the JAG Corps can absolutely offer for you. Obviously, because we are active duty military, fitness is also a priority. One of the best things I love about my job is that my time going to the gym is considered part of my workday. I don't actually have to go before or after work. I can go in the middle of the day if I want to. It's considered part of my job requirement, and so they're not going to raise an eyebrow if I fail to go to the gym, because that's considered something that is my work duty and that I'm required to do it, and therefore I can take time out of the day to do it, which I love, because I used to, you kind of avoid it if you have to schedule it on the other sides of things. So the way we typically divide up our offices are in between two kind of command structures. One is the Defense Service Office, which is what the map shows here, and the next one is going to show you the Region Legal Service Office. They differ by the work that they perform. So remember I talked about how the Navy, you either have the Navy as a client often or a service member as a client. If you worked for a Defense Service Office, the service member is going to be your client. The Defense Service Office are the guys that do the personal representation for our service members. Court-martial defense, medical boards, administrative boards. So if someone's going to be fired from military service, we're not an at-will employment. We actually have liberty interest in our job. So you're going to have a hearing to determine whether or not you should be fired. And you're going to have, there's counsel that provide defense services for that. So that's these folks, and you can see where their main offices are located. Of course, the military divides everything up around the country as little groups, but we've got one in Washington, D.C. centralized, the Southeast for Florida, West Coast where I'm at in San Diego, and then you've got Japan. And you can see too, like the ones that are in bold, that's where the headquarters is, but they're going to have then all these detachment offices in all those other different locations. And so again, we're all around the country and all around the world doing these services. Here's the other side of the house, which is the Region Legal Service Office, which is, again, tends to be the legal support provided to the Navy as a whole. So this is where you're going to find your prosecutors. So your court-martial prosecutors' offices are going to be attached to the RLSO. Folks that are providing advice to individual commands that may not have their own lawyer, because not every command actually gets its own counsel. So they are in need of legal advice as well, and so that's the offices that are going to provide that. These are also the offices that provide the legal assistance for the individual service members, so that the estate planning and the consumer defense type stuff I talked about. These are going to be the offices that provide those services. And the same thing, so you can see where the headquarters are, and then where all the different satellite offices are located. So plenty of options to be all around the country and the world. These are our trial judiciary circuits, and so we have our own, obviously, court-martial, we have our own court system, and that comes with not only judicial circuits, but also in a full appellate system, with the appellate courts being located also in DC. So if that's something you're interested in as well, appellate defense or appellate government work, we have all those offices also in Washington, DC. So here's kind of how it works if you were to come into the JAG Corps. We do our initial officer training in Rhode Island. So it's a two-part training. You go to what's called Officer Development School, which is really, quite frankly, how they teach you how to be an officer in the Navy. They presume no prior military experience. I myself had none before I came into the JAG Corps. And you literally go with the staff corps officers, so dentists, doctors, like lawyers, nurses, and some chaplains sometimes, to be trained to how to be an officer in the United States Navy. That's about 5 weeks. Usually you learn officer leadership type things, as well as your basic military customs and courtesies, marching, saluting, how to put your uniform on, that kind of stuff. And it sounds really basic, but obviously you have to learn it somehow. Then comes 10 weeks of Naval Justice School, also located in Newport, Rhode Island. And that is where you learn all the military rules of evidence, the manual for court-martial. They have you go through like a mock trial. They teach you with the legal assistance basics. You actually do like client consultations, things like that. They actually have you work. They run parallel tracks between the attorneys and our uniformed paralegals. So they have a lot of like cross training between lawyers and paralegals. So you learn how to use a paralegal when you go to your first assignment. Then they're going to send you off to what we call a first tour. The tours are usually 2 to 3 years long, and then you're going to keep moving kind of at that pace. Your first tour is really primarily going to be at one of those offices, a DSO or a RLSO, the Regional Legal Service Office. We have right now what we call a first tour judge advocate program, so that it's the kind of thing where you go, you show what you do command, and they kind of have a checklist that they want to make sure that you have, you have a chance to touch all the different areas of the law that you may practice in throughout your career, with some, minimal supervision, so you can kind of get off running, kind of, as you start your practice. You're going to be more likely than not stateside for your first assignment. There is some exception for the larger offices overseas. And then the idea again is just to kind of make sure that you are adjusting kind of well to the practice, and that you are able to handle the workload and all that kind of good stuff. And then your second tour tends to be a lot more individualized, in the sense that you're going to be more likely to not be off as a staff judge advocate for an individual command. So probably a Navy installation somewhere, like Naval Base San Diego, for example, where I'm stationed, has its own lawyer, as well as all the other installations also have their own attorneys. And so you're going to be providing direct legal advice to the commanding officer of that command. And there's obviously so many different installations, and almost everyone actually has their own attorney, so there's a huge option there. In the third tour, you kind of can tend to be a little more flexible, where people tend to move back. Some people decide, you know what, I did the litigation thing my first tour, I tried the SJA work my second tour, I didn't really care for that type of law, I'd like to get back into the courtroom. So that's when you see people kind of tending to specialize, if you will, coming back to litigation, or going off to, like I said, those code headquarters in Washington, D.C. So maybe there's an area of law that they really enjoyed, they want to go kind of delve into it more, so maybe they're going to go work at the International Law Code, at the Pentagon, or they're going to do, some people really love admin law, God bless them, so it's like the personnel stuff and the instructions that govern military life. Some people just love to dig into those, and there's a whole office of people that just specialize in that kind of stuff. You'll see appellate defense and appellate prosecution or appellate government, those kinds of things. Otherwise, people also love being an SJA. I know people that have somehow found a way to manage to align themselves with, say, the special warfare community, and they hop as staff judge advocate for different SEAL teams and different special warfare groups, because that's a very specialized kind of area of practice in terms of the work that those guys do. So that's kind of something you can also have an opportunity to do. And then you kind of just keep picking jobs and kind of going off from there. There's not really one set career track, but it's not uncommon to be picked to go back to law school for your LLM. So like I said, I got selected to go get my environmental law LLM. We offer programs in operational international law LLMs, trial advocacy LLMs, as well as there's actually an LLM program at the Army JAG School in Charlottesville, Virginia, that the Navy will send folks to kind of get like an overarching, almost military law LLM that is very common as well. And you do have choice in all this, by the way. I have to make sure that sometimes that's a common misconception a lot of times. You don't have a huge amount of choice. You do kind of give a little bit of control over the United States Navy. But what you do is when it's your time to move, or getting to be close to your time to move, we'll come out with a gigantic list of all the jobs that are available. You put in for your top 3 to 5, and more often than not, you're going to get one of those on that list. Very rarely are they going to pull something out of left field on you. It happens, you know, but it's fairly uncommon. And you'll usually get the call from the detailer in person to kind of talk it over. Like what happened to me, I'll tell you an example. We were in school for our LLM. There were 6 of us around the country that were getting our LLMs. And the detailer was pretty candid. He came back to all of us and said, 4 of you, he goes, well, I got 4 jobs available in environmental law when you guys graduate. So I need 2 of you to get a little bit more creative for me, and then we'll see what we can do to help you out. And I ended up volunteering to go to Afghanistan. And then when I came back from Afghanistan, I was able to get my environmental law assignment. So it may not be exactly the way that you hoped it would all work out, but you know what, it generally tends to work itself out. One of the things that we do have, I'm not sure if I have 2 slides on this or one, yeah, is we have something now called a military justice career track. So if litigation really is 100% your thing, about 2007, 2008, the Navy JAG Corps decided, you know what, with all this kind of flopping back and forth with jobs, we were losing some of our really great litigators. And so if there are people in the JAG Corps that absolutely want to stay as litigators, we want to support that. And so there's actually a track that you can elect to become a part of where you are a career prosecutor or you are a career defense counsel. And you will then specialize in military justice. There's going to be special jobs that are only available to you. So like we have, like I said, that when that list comes out, it'll actually say military justice track only. They will funnel you into only military justice related jobs. Because some people really want to come in and be judges, for example. And so we track our judges tend to come from that pool of folks who are the experts in military justice and things like that. And obviously we do have a certain level of complexity to the litigation that prosecutors and defense counsel are involved in, really complicated computer-related forensics, classified litigation, things like that. And so if that's, again, an area that you're interested in, that is an opportunity that the Navy has. We do a lot of we call operational law. So if international law is something that you're interested in, this is an area of practice that we do have an opportunity to become involved in. You can get involved with this either by actually deploying either on the ground, which we had in both Iraq and Afghanistan. There are some opportunities also in the Horn of Africa, which I'll talk a bit more about in detail. You may also be a lawyer for a strike group or an operational command. I think I mentioned this surface warfare community has a lot of attorneys that work for them. They a lot of times will take their lawyers with them when they deploy, and you're going to be advising on not only your kind of average command type law stuff, which is discipline and those kinds of things that happen within any command, but you're also going to have the added responsibility of things like rules of engagement and operational warfare. We deal with a lot of counterinsurgency, counter-piracy, and drug and addiction operations. So if that's kind of, law of the sea and those kinds of things are somewhat interesting to you, those are absolutely things that Navy JAGs have an opportunity to do. In my very first tour, I was able to volunteer to be part of an exercise. It was a joint exercise with the US Navy, the Germans, the British, and the Canadians, and I think one other one. I can't exactly remember. And it was literally to kind of see how our rules of engagement would mesh with each other and do with submarine hunting and those kinds of activities off the coast of North Carolina. So it's absolutely an opportunity that you have to be able to practice. And so again, this is the components we tend to see. So you might very well be the JAG on board an aircraft carrier. And so when that aircraft carrier is deployed, you may have some a chance to kind of practice that kind of law in terms of literally, where can the ships go, where can the aircraft go, where can the submarines go, or like a bigger strike group. Those are really common operational law jobs for the Navy, where you're actually advising the commander of a strike group, which is a group of ships, not just one ship. And those are the folks that tend to have an international law LLM tend to go to those jobs because they're best served to be able to advise in that area. So our Afghanistan mission is kind of winding down right now, but there are still opportunities to deploy on the ground in Afghanistan. They're just, like I said, winding down because of their shifting, obviously we're pulling back combat troops. But what lawyers do is we're obviously not combat, we're not combat professionals. They do obviously train you before you leave, so you're not completely unskilled with the weapon before you go, but that's not your primary purpose there. As lawyers, we're interested in stability and the rule of law, and so that mission will continue even though combat troops are off the ground. So it's not uncommon to still see deployments for attorneys to go be working out in different provinces in Afghanistan where they're doing reach out to police, prosecutors, trying to help strengthen their justice system in order to hopefully help create a more stable society. When I was deployed to Afghanistan, I was very fortunate to be able to work at the US Embassy for one of the ambassadors, and that was his mission, was rule of law. And so as attorneys, we are also policy advisors in that capacity. Again, looking for programs and things that are going to help strengthen as well, kind of in the overall scheme of counterinsurgency and things like that. So it's super interesting work, like I said, kind of winding down. But we do see a lot of the counterinsurgency and counter-piracy missions coming now out of the Horn of Africa, which is the Djibouti area of Africa. So that is something we're kind of seeing a little bit more of a pickup in. So again, deployments aren't, I should say ground deployments aren't completely gone for the Navy, even though it's kind of uncommon because obviously our line of work tends to be ship-based because we are naval forces. But these are the kinds of things that if you were to go to the Horn of Africa, you might be involved with. This mission is not going away, so it's still something that lawyers from all services are involved with. You kind of see it in two capacities. This one here, which is the actual running and the administration of the detention camps in Guantanamo Bay. They have lawyers assigned to them to make sure that the detainees are treated in accordance with international standards. They're going to be providing legal advice to the command that, quite frankly, just runs the prison. Then the other side of the house is what I did have experience doing, is you are actually either a trial counsel or defense counsel in the military commission litigation that is happening in Guantanamo Bay under the Military Commissions Act. So different, you can see war crimes. I was a defense attorney, so that's why these come up. The war crimes prosecutions for the detainees in Gitmo. And that is a very fascinating line of work, but again, I don't think it's really going anywhere anytime soon. So these are generally kind of where we are. So you can see the biggest picture of that pie is that yellow, which is CONUS, is the fancy military way of saying continental United States. So most of our jobs are going to be stateside. But you can see the big chunks of that purple is the operational stuff, the C component, if you have a really interested in deployment at sea, is that blue, with the overseas being that little green portion, and then DC for you can see is the gray. So it's a big chunk of the area stateside where we have a lot of different offices. So if you this is the kind of general application stuff. It's online is really the key here. It's the jag.navy.mil/careers. Really walks you through the whole process. It is all completely online. You do all the forms, and then you schedule an interview, which is going to be an in-person structured interview with two JAG officers. And then once you've done all those things, your application is complete. And then what we do is basically the pool of applicants go before a board. The board meets twice a year, usually in February and October. And so the way it works is literally however many applications we get, they go before the board. The board is basically told you can select X amount of people, and the actual number varies based on kind of like what we're told from above as to how many new lawyers we can bring in. So they're going to be told you can take 25, 40 people out of this pool, and then they go through the applications one by one, and then they kind of, through a consensus process, vote on who's going to be accepted into the JAG Corps. And like, that's what takes so long, because they have only two a year. So once you get your application, you got to make it before one of those boards. So say if you were going to do your application, you know, if you missed the February window, you're stuck waiting until the October one. But this is the best source of the questions. If you have any other questions that come up beyond, you know, me being here, because I don't want to take up too much more time with this. So I'm hopefully going to be able to answer whatever you guys want to know. But if you got stuck and you realize later, this is the best contact information to get some more information about the process. Last motivational photograph. So here you got the Enterprise Battle Group, all the ships that comprise the battle group when they go out in their deployment. You can see all the different aircraft and the ships that are components of the battle group, and 4 lawyers. So this is the kind of work that we really do in the JAG Corps. It's not just lip service, you know, this is the actual kind of work that we are involved in. I think this is the last motivational photograph. So that's just really, again, a quick overview. I want to make sure that I have an opportunity to answer any and all questions that you guys have, because we recognize, one, our practice areas are obviously a little bit more unique. It's not your standard law firm kind of work. And 2, most folks, like I was in this category, have no experience previous to the military, and the idea of being on active duty is a bit daunting to some. So kind of no question is too ridiculous, because I assure you I've heard it all, because we want to make sure people get a chance to really understand what we do. So, yeah.
How many applicants do you get every year, or each review session?
You know, I'm not 100% sure, but they're kind of going up into like, you know, hundreds and hundreds. It's becoming more and more competitive each year because we're getting so many applications for finite slots. I'm sorry, I don't remember, because we get a notice whenever they accept new applicants or they commission new officers, and will tell us that out of this many applicants, here and they have a list. It's like a welcome to the family kind of email. I want to say several hundred though for about 20 to 40 spots. So it's a bit intense competition nowadays. So, anyway, yeah.
I hate to bring up other branches of the military.
No worries.
Is the Army, the Coast Guard, the Air Force, the application process tends to be the same? Because like, I know the Army, if you request information, they send it to you and you apply online and everything, but the branches all tend to be the same.
I think so. I don't know for sure, but no, we absolutely encourage you to look at all the different branches, quite frankly. I mean, because we all are a little bit different. Like, if military is more your thing, for example, and you really want to be like a military officer more than anything else, the Army and the Marine Corps may be more your speed. Whereas the Navy looks at our attorneys as, you can see on my uniform, I have this little symbol, surface warfare officers and kind of your more traditional naval officers actually have a star on theirs. The Navy recognizes something called a staff corps, where absolutely I'm a naval officer, but they recognize I'm also an attorney. Where if you want to be a rifleman, man, I mean, the Marine Corps is, you are a Marine Corps officer first, and then maybe the lawyer second. So that's a different culture, but we all, definitely look at them, all of them. But no, they're all, it means we're all still federal government, so it's very much, apply online, get some kind of interview, and then they go through their selection process. But they have their own training pipeline. I think we do have the better school location in Newport, Rhode Island. Although the Army is not bad in Charlottesville, Virginia, the Air Force is in Alabama, and the Marine Corps, they send their folks to Justice School. But you got to go through OCS and That's no joke, so, yes.
So, and do you offer any summer program or internship program, or are students applying in their final year of law school? Kind of.
We will take, well, there's two questions.
Yeah.
So yeah, yes, we absolutely have interns. And so if you're interested in just kind of really honest to goodness how we operate, try to apply for one of the internships. I don't know about the pay, to be honest with you, and I don't really think there's a great deal of it, if there is any at all. But you're more likely going to be at one of our big headquarters. We had a bunch of interns in San Diego this year. It gives you a chance to get exposed to how the Navy works. When I was in Italy, somebody was an intern for us. I think he just on his own dime decided he wanted to come out. And so, you know, we're flexible, obviously, but it is a set application process as well. Oh, now I completely blanked.
And so then so if folks were applying to actually become commissioned, is it in the October, February of their final year of law school?
No, any year. You can apply as a 1L if you want. We will take your application. You go into what they call the student program. So you could, in fact, get accepted, you know, during your second year, for example. Then you don't actually go on active duty until you've completed Naval Justice School. So you kind of just, that's what I did. I applied, oh goodness, this is how old I am. So I applied during my second year. I did get accepted and commissioned, so I swore the oath and took the oath as the officer and all that kind of stuff before I was finished with law school. And then you just kind of sit in an inactive status until then you are ready to go for training and stuff like that. So I took I'm California attorney, so I took the California bar in like July, and then by you know, the fall, I think it was November, they sent me off to officer school, and then right after the new year to officer school. So absolutely, it's actually a little bit, I don't want to say easier, but like we do have what they call a direct sessions program, where if you actually are already a licensed and practicing attorney, you can also apply to come into the JAG Corps. It's a different application process in the sense if you go before a different board. They kind of have two different piles of applications. You're still doing the online stuff, the interview and all that kind of stuff. You're just only going to be looked at in that pool of other licensed attorneys. So I think, you know, a little bit, I've heard that that's even more competitive than the regular student program. So if it's something you're even remotely interested in, just get that application process started and in, because like I said, it takes a while to find out.
And then can students apply multiple times? So if they don't get in the first time around, can they try again? Is there
absolutely.
any prejudice to their application?
No, I don't think they let you redo the interview though. And so your packet stays the same. It just kind of keeps going before the board. And so, yeah, you can, absolutely, yeah. They just, again, like I said, don't give you a second shot at the interview for a little bit of reason. Yes?
Does the internship program help you in the application process, or do they even look at that?
They do. The way, the Navy JAG Corps is really big in what they call the whole person approach. So what that really means is like the traditional trappings of legal employment, like in law school type of stuff, law review, report, all that kind of stuff, they matter, but really what the JAG Corps is really looking at is like you as a human and like kind of, you're going to be able to jump in with 2 feet to this kind of crazy adventure that we all kind of are part of. And so that really is the biggest thing. And so the fact that you're willing to go and try it out and do the internship absolutely is going to have bearing. You're more likely than not going to be able to get a letter of recommendation from somebody that's wearing the uniform, which absolutely is something that other naval officers give credit to. And you know, we understand. You know what I mean? Like if the commanding officer of the command that you happen to intern for writes a really stellar letter of recommendation, that is going to carry weight with the board. Absolutely. Is it like the huge factor that's going to swing you one way or the other? Probably not, because they're looking literally at your whole kind of life history and kind of where you've been and who you are to determine whether or not you're going to be a great fit for our organization. Does that kind of make sense? Yeah, the whole person is kind of a really vague standard. It's one of those down you know when you see it kind of things. So, yes.
Is it a different website for the internship than it is for the main application?
I don't think so. Let me double check. I think they gave me like a cheat sheet, and I think I have it written down here.
LCS.
Let me double check.
I know we had a posting, because there was a deadline yesterday.
That was February 3rd, this Monday.
Next Monday.
They are, because the board for February is tight. It's coming up right now, where I think you have to have absolutely everything complete completed before February 14th to make it for the board, and that means you actually have to have your interview completed before then as well. So the deadlines are super tight right now for the February board, but it's wide open if you want to make the October one. So let me double check. I think it's the same as we put all of our career information there, but just in case they've moved it. Let me double check. What does it say here? I'm like 90% sure that's where it is. Because that's how we got a lot of people. And you get a feel for whether or not you really even like it. Yeah, it's all right. I don't have it down. I'm sorry.
Fine. Fine.
You guys have any other questions? Yeah.
For the thing you did, the student applying early and everything.
Yeah.
I remember I went on, I can't remember his name, but one of your guys, and it said you weren't accepting an application for that program at that time.
Oh.
But it was right after the October deadline, probably.
Might be. Yeah.
But does that open up a certain, like December and then?
Probably. I would just keep checking the website. Like, 'cause I think they'll take them, because it takes a while for the next board to come up. So yeah, they're gonna have it open and they're gonna close it for that period of the board. And there's a couple weeks, I think it's like 3 weeks after the board that the decision will be released as to who gets accepted. And they say professionally recommended, and then there'll be a little bit of lag time, and then the whole process will open again. It is, fair warning, it's the government. Like, God bless the federal government, but sometimes not the most efficient system in the world. So, yeah, I say keep at it, keep trying. Because they do funnel everything to the website, and that's how they want everybody to do everything is all online. So, back in the day when it was all done by paper and that kind of stuff. So, you guys have any other dying questions? I think the comments that we get asked. I think I covered the choice of assignments. Again, you throw in your top choices to the hat, but sometimes the needs of the Navy will override. But you overall do have a modicum of choice over your career. It's not just the Navy's way or the highway. That was something that I was concerned about when I came in. I think, yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
Board, guys, it's kind of personal.
No worries.
But I'm prior enlisted.
Okay.
So that whole military experience stuff, like I think I checked that box.
Yeah.
And I'm with the DA's office where they're gonna, here I'm already, getting courtroom experience.
Oh,
So
nice.
I'm wondering if continue with these internships, like externships outside the civilian world where I'm gonna get that box checked, or should I go back and do a Navy internship and show my hey,
I got you. Yeah, so that's a tough call. I will say, obviously, our interns aren't able to be in court. So if you're actually getting straight up in-court experience, and that is something that you truly want to be able to do, you may be better served of keeping that. You obviously have the background of being prior enlisted, so you kind of generally know how the Navy would work. So you may not be kind of have your eyes open by that. You know what I mean? Like some people really truly have no idea how the military works, don't know what a CO or an XO are. You know what I mean? Just have no frame of reference. And so that's super beneficial. But that being said, I mean, our interns do get solid legal work. I mean, I had a couple working for me in environmental work where I had them doing research projects on really unique issues that were coming up in our area of practice. So you're still going to get like legitimate legal experience as a Navy intern. But just for your career progression, if litigation is your thing and you really want to try it, you may get better served from doing the DA's office. You know what I mean? Like, because we're not going to let our interns in court. Because you have to be, in order to practice in front of a court-martial, you have to be 27 Bravo certified. So it's a UCMJ thing. So they're going to be able to write, and they're going to do motion work and help, but they're not going to be able to actually stand up. And if that's something that they will let you do, that might be something worth considering. If that makes sense. But no, I mean, our interns for work-wise, they're drafting a lot of motions. They did let them do client meetings with legal assistance work. So they're, under the supervision of a lawyer, but you're actually doing actual client consultations. Did a lot of witness interviews for court-martials. And like I said, I give them some kind of brand teaser legal problem that we're having in environmental, dealing with endangered species protection and access on door installations. And so there's definitely legal work that you're going to be doing. Plus, they do try to actually show you a good time, essentially. We're by no means a big fancy law firm, But we have aircraft carriers and really cool guns, and so we will take our interns out to as many things as possible. One of the things we were able to score for our interns this summer was there's this, it used to be classified, and they're still kind of cagey about it, the Marine Mammal Program in San Diego, where we actually employ dolphins and sea lions to do counter mine operations for us and swimmer interdiction. We were able to get them a tour so they could actually meet the biologists, talk about the program, and see the sea lions and stuff like that. So we try to show you some of the cooler stuff that we were able to do. Sometimes they're able to go out to the, I've known of some, I think they were going to like firing ranges and things like that, that the military can't really do. But, yeah, I'm sure you guys have more questions. I think if I covered everything, or like the stuff that we always get, yeah.
Okay, this is kind of a little off topic, but
Yeah, sure.
focus on fitness aspects. Does that mean, when you say gym, the one on the base, or if I wanted to do, because I do martial arts a lot, and if I want to go to like CrossFit training, continue that wherever I'm stationed, does that count for it?
Oh yeah, I'm a CrossFit junkie, so I go to a CrossFit gym, and you gotta pay for it. So the nice bonus is, because they are so fitness oriented, their bases have free gyms and free facilities. I'm out of my own pocket to go to the CrossFit gym, but yeah, nobody's gonna turn on an eye to that. We do our physical fitness tests twice a year, spring and fall. I will say the Navy is not as strenuous, perhaps, as the other services. It's a 1.5 mile run where you are given a range you have to be in for your age and gender, and then it's 2 minutes of sit-ups and 2 minutes of push-ups. So it's really not, the only time in your life you'll probably get thrilled to get older, because it gets a little bit easier on you every time you get an age category. So, but yeah, it's not as bad. Like the Marines are like 3 mile run, and they do all this kind of crazy ammunition carries and farmer carries and all that kind of stuff. I think the Army's also 3 miles. So, yeah, it's a little bit different. But yeah, twice a year. And then we have command PT every once a week with our command. So you're out there with your coworkers doing ridiculous things like volleyball or dodgeball that no adults really supposed to be playing anymore. But it's a great teamwork and camaraderie building. And so we alternate between kind of a somewhat silly game versus like hardcore, like running around the track and things like that. Because you're out there, again, it's the community aspect of everything, very almost family oriented amongst all your coworkers. You get a chance to get out there and get together. Everybody ends up, I swear to God, we have more injuries of all of our older JAGs end up getting a little hardcore on the dodgeball and coming back with ridiculous injuries. So I think we're kind of taming that down so we'll get super competitive. But it's a great aspect, part of the job. So, is there anything else you guys are dying to know? It's a great gig. I'll tell people all the time, if someone had told me as a 1L that I'd end up in the military, I probably would have laughed in their face, because I just had no previous experience with the military. It was not something that was on my radar, but it was something that I heard about while I was in law school. Kind of said, you know what, I'm going to give this a try. It sounds pretty awesome. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? I only have to do it for like 4 years, and I can leave if I hate it. And I told my husband, I'm only going to stay as long as the Navy keeps giving me cool jobs to do. And 12 years later, I completely at one point thought I was going to get out after that first initial tour. And like I said, 12 years later, I'm still in, and I have no regrets whatsoever. Because it's a fantastic opportunity to really develop your legal practice. I mean, I will be candid. Some people kind of criticize us in the sense that we switch back and forth from different legal areas like a lot. I mean, you're obviously going to be at one job for 2, maybe 3 years, and you're doing something completely brand new and completely different. A lot of us sometimes joke, it's time to move when you've gotten really good at your job, and then they're going to pick you up and send you to someplace else. And so I have heard from civilian attorneys, it's kind of this, master of nothing kind of a view of military attorneys. And I can tell you it's absolutely the opposite. You have a chance to become experienced and proficient in so many different areas of law, and you don't lose it. You don't, even because you're not practicing it right away, it's not gone. It's just going to be one more thing in your toolbox that you have for your legal career. Because I remember as a 1L doing the on-campus interviews and having people from law firms asking me, well, what kind of area do you want to practice in? Like, there was this impression that I was going to have to pick my practice area right away, go to some firm, and then be locked into it for like eternity. And that just drove me crazy. I was like, I can't. I mean, I've only been in law school for a year. There's a whole different, you know, world of legal practice out there. I want to have a chance to experience all of it. In my 12 years, I've been able to do international work,